So apparently I just now realized the microphone on the camera was off the entire time, so we're going to kind of start over on the verbiage. We came through that main gate you saw, and we stayed straight on that logging trail. We did see a couple other logging roads that went off to the right through the woods. One did have blue blazes even. We stayed straight on that logging trail. We're about a half mile in now. The trail's just taking its first turn into the woods. And we found this cool little shed. I was kind of surprised we found this because it's obviously been out here for a little while now and the rodents haven't gotten to it. You know, they'll eat these for the nutrients. And I'm assuming this isn't a very well-traveled path either, or somebody else would have grabbed it. But yeah, to find it out here on a flat trail, it's kind of interesting. Usually you'll find them around down trees where the deer are jumping and that little jolt knocks their antlers loose. Or you'll find them through thick brush where the brush snags them and pulls them off once they're at that stage. But so that was neat. But so yeah, we're just over a half mile in here now, and we're taking our first slight incline up into the woods. Okay, and so right here where I said the trail's starting to go up a slight incline, I just see where it goes into the woods here, which is exactly like Mr. Dillon says in his book. At approximately 0.75, we're turning right, leaving the logging road, heading into the woods here. And they do have blue blazes. In the book, he had mentioned that the trail wasn't marked. So I don't know if that's something new or not. But at the trailhead, it did mention you'll be following blue blazes. You see, the trail gets a little overgrown here. Oh, there's our next blue blaze way up yonder there. And you can kind of see the path, even with the saplings all over it. You can see the impression. I'm going to go ahead and reiterate my concern that this probably isn't, or my belief rather, that this isn't much of a well-traveled trail. Oh, coming up on about a mile in now. Got these pretty little flowers all over the trail. Kind of seeing mixed signals on how well traveled this may or may not be. I see a couple spots where small trees were down across the trail that you can tell were cut not too gosh awful long ago. But then I'm kind of curious with all the saplings overgrowing the trail that they wouldn't have cleared those out. So who knows? But once you get through that one little overgrown section I showed you there, the trail opens back up here and it's a very well-defined path. And nice and quiet. But yeah, so we're about a mile in now. Just over a mile, just about a mile and a quarter in. Looks like trail's getting ready to kind of take a bend and go down, and came across a murder scene. Looks like somebody had a bad day here. Circle of life. It looks like something's definitely been scuffing along this trail. Could be deer or who knows. Animals take the path of least resistance just like we do. So right here's where we're coming up on the cabin that's mentioned in the book. Now it said 1.7 miles in. We're only about a mile and a quarter in now. But the trail should split to a Y. And we head to the left and follow the old railroad grade out around the base of the mountain. Nothing better than listening to the babbling cricks in the woods. Birds chirping, and nothing else. I've got an idea to make a video of that, where I just take footage of little mini waterfalls and things, Just make like a 30-minute relaxation video of different ones. Maybe do like 30 seconds or a minute of different little waterfalls. Just put that to one big long video of about 30 minutes long. So we went down and followed the blue blazes, which took us down to the road, and that was wrong. So I'm going to say this is the Y in the trail that's supposed to be at 1.7. That's actually more like 1.25 mile. And I have a very accurate Garmin Phoenix 5. But according to the trail map, this has to be the Y. So we're going to take this off to the left. And you see the white cabin down there, and there's a maroon one down that way. This is not easy to follow at all. Yeah, I'm not seeing any blazes of any sort except for the blue ones that led us down to the road. But this is supposed to be the railroad grade that you follow around the base of the mountain. Yeah, I'm failing to see anything that remotely resembles a trail here. Here we go. Now it kind of opens up over here. Wants to cross another wet spot. This kind of looks like something. So this part of the trail could definitely use some improvement. Yeah, it wasn't much of a railroad grade. That was more like a creek bed. Oh, we must have missed something somewhere, because right there's a railroad grade. Right below where we're hiking here. So maybe you go directly behind that cabin. I don't know where we missed it. But like I said, right above where we were. It's the whole point of this video, so you don't make the same mistakes we do. But yeah, it's definitely overgrown, and you're going to be going up around it anyhow. And you see the trail's completely covered with these pines. So yeah, I'm going to say behind that white cabin is probably where the railroad grade is that you're supposed to turn onto. But I will say you do not want to go down to the road. The trail parallels the road here. So onward and upward we go. So we're not quite 2 miles in. And from that cabin, for the next half mile beyond it, is absolutely miserable. A lot of springs coming out of the side of the mountain. It's all just a muddy, disgusting mess. It's all covered in leaves, so it appears to be dry. So you just want to watch coming through there. But I'm optimistic we're done with that part, hopefully. And we're on some dry ground. So like I say, coming up on the 2 mile mark now. So I spoke a second too soon. One more muddy mess to get through, and you can see the amount of bugs here. And now we head into the overgrown trail. And we have a buck rub. Not fresh, obviously. From this past season, it looks like, though. And now we are at the 2 mile mark. And that distance could be just a touch off from us walking around the cabin trying to find the trail. But it's not going to be off too gosh awful far. There's another little buck rub. Alright. We got some deer droppings here. Feels like 3 of them. And it looks like they came through about 2.5 days ago. Actually, I have no idea. I just got that off the old westerns. But I gotta say, looking at this is going on my list of trails that probably used to be trails that DCNR has long forgotten about. This doesn't get cleared out here pretty soon or marked in some way, and we're gonna lose this trail. This could definitely use a little attention. This section of it anyway. Tons of deer through here though, so I bet the cabin folks are happy. I saw lots of buck rubs, and we're seeing lots of droppings. And there's another one right there. Now I know where we're at. If anybody else recognizes that hood, you know where we're at too. We are just above the Latonia CCC. And I'm going to do a video of that at some point also. That's a really interesting site, because the info board gives you a picture of what it used to look like when it was a camp up and running. And you can still see the foundations right there to part of the one building. And so that shows you in the picture where you're at. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, so we're right on the hilltop, right above that CCC center. So you'll have different mixed debris up here. The buildings, right there is like an old water fountain, I believe that was. Most of the buildings that were part of that camp were wooden, so they're all long gone. So now you just have the metal hoods and things still scattered through the woods. And like I said, some foundational ruins. But yeah, interesting site nonetheless. We're at just about, oh there goes the deer, just about 2¼ mile. And this is kind of neat right here. You can really see the railroad grade, where the railroad would have been right through here. Yeah, I thought this was really neat to show this part. And the deer apparently love this area. Got them digging and rubbing and... Right here at the spot where we're about 2.5, a little over 2.5 miles in. You can see somebody came in through here trimming saplings in this part of the trail a little bit. So just be careful where you're walking. But you can even tell that's been a couple years. We got little stems coming up off them already. Probably been at least 2-3 years ago they trimmed all that. It's got buck rubs all over the place here. Well, yeah, so again, just watch where you're walking up through here so you don't trip on any of these little stems sticking up out. I think normally they paint them to make them visible so that another person on the crew can come through and chop them down. I don't know if they grind them or what they do, but these are just kind of sticking up out of the ground all throughout this little section here. So right as we're walking here, I notice up above me you can see another leveled off flat spot where it looks like a road went up through there. And then there's this pipe and this old rebar pounded into the ground. I'm not sure what this is. It's not super old. We got rubber coupler on there and a couple stainless steel band clamps, so. But yeah, that looks like there's definitely a flat spot up there. Another overgrown road. So I don't know how old that might be. We're about 2.75 mile in here. Here you can kind of see the ripples in the ground where the railroad ties would have been for the railroad. Okay, so following this grade led us to a cabin, and there were some people home, and we've apparently missed a turn somewhere. We need to be farther up this hill, and so that pipe I had just mentioned is actually a water line that feeds a lot of these camps. So now we're backtracking, and this is an old railroad grade, but this isn't the trail we need. If we just stayed on this, it goes right through their front yard, through their front porch, and then you got to cross the creek. And the people at the cabin did confirm, except for the occasional hunter, we're the first person they've ever seen hike this trail. So apparently it is not well traveled. And where I mentioned about somebody trimming it, but DCNR typically paints it so that you can see the roots. The reason that looks like that is because this cabin owner is one that keeps this part of the trail trimmed down. So we got some information there. So we're going to backtrack, and there's a couple different flat spots up through here. He said we need to be a couple roads up, if you want to call them that, and then we should run into the trail. But yeah, this trail is not marked very well at all, or maintained at all. So we're just going to kind of cross country it up across here and get back onto a trail. So to give you a little update from that rock formation and the water pipe, we came straight up over the hillside to the second road. And there's another one right above us. We might hop up onto that here in a minute too. But it just now dawned on me, some of the people that requested this trail be recorded were people that have cabins right here near Latonia. The man offered to direct us down the road and across the bridge and up somebody's driveway to get back on the trail. But like I had told him, I don't want to make a video of that and then have everybody walking through his front yard. You know, you guys come up here for your privacy. So I told him we would go ahead and hop up over the hillside here, cross country a minute, and find the trail that way. So we're at about 3.4 on my watch. Again, distance is a little bit off. We're just up above the cabins, following a deer trail. And we hit our first big run here. So we're just going to keep following this out around and see when we come up on the trail there. So we're catching our breath here, and as you can tell, we are above town and on a part of the hill nobody hikes. I hit the GPS, and the good news is we are above where we should be. We are up around 1,500 foot elevation. The trail, we're just above Latonia. The trail actually runs along the 1,400 foot parallel. I really think we just had to stay right behind those cabins, but there was no way to go around it except going through, and he said we'd have to cross a creek if we did. So we just hiked right through that little run right there you see above where the blue dot is, and hiked up over the hillside a little bit because I figured I'd rather be above the trail than below it. So we're going to continue and head across the hillside here and work our way down a little bit to run back into the trail. So we won't be too horribly off even with mileage, so that's a good thing. It'll be interesting to see the Garmin Connect tracking versus the trail when we get done this. See how far off we were. All this for you folks. If you have not subscribed, I'm gonna be a little ignorant here and say at this point I think you owe it to me. So again, we're doing this trail by request, so here it is. So yeah, see the trail right below us here. Very well defined, nice wide flat road. So we're working our way back down to that, and then we'll be back on track. And you can see it is just above those cabins. So again, I don't know where we went wrong here, but this trail's not marked at all, so who knows. But we're back on track. So right where we came down off the hillside, out onto the trail, brought us right out to a Y. The lower road's labeled red. We're going to take the upper road. I believe that's going to keep us at the 1,400 foot contour line. And again, I'd rather be above the trail than below it and have to try and hike up over a hillside. So I checked our elevation, and we're about 40 feet above where we should be. So we are going to go down to that lower road. So the road with the red mark is the road you want to be on. And again, that's the purpose of the video, so you don't make the same mistakes we make. So we're going to head down there, and then it should be, I don't want to jinx myself, but it should be pretty much a logging road and wide open path like this all the way back around. Just about 4.5 miles in. Got some deer running up over the hillside there. They just crossed the trail in front of us. See him running up across the hill. Yeah, there's cocoa puffs everywhere on this railroad grade. But yeah, at this point it's pretty easy to follow. This part doesn't seem to be near as overgrown. I wonder if these trees would still fall down if they didn't have a trail to fall across. So out of all the trees down in these woods, looks like every single one of them found a way to be across the trail. We're only about 4.6 in, and it's been pretty much climbing over down trees non-stop for the last over half mile straight. So that's where we're at. So we're about 4.8 miles in. That is our last red paint splotch, and now the trail disappears again. So looking at the map, I'm going to guess we just keep following this run. So that's what we're gonna do. Oh, there's one. There's a red paint mark way up yonder there. But yeah, we're going to keep following this run here. Should bring us to a cabin in about another 3/4 of a mile or so. And that's our next kind of landmark, if you will. Now here we are 5 miles in. Still following this little dry creek bed, little run here. It did have water in a couple spots. Wasn't moving real well, but probably wouldn't kill you if you had to have a drink. Pretty obvious where deer and everything cross right here. You can see where they keep brushing against the log as they cross over. Tons of deer tracks up through here. That's the neat thing about finding these wet, muddy areas. Looking for tracks and seeing what kind of animals cross through here. But this green grass is really interesting to see out in the middle of the woods along this run. About 5 1/4 mile in here. Got a cabin off to our left. And we're still following the creek. The little run there. Turns into a nice grassy path. We had more deer cross in front of us. I'm assuming this is the cabin that's supposed to be at 5.55 miles, where the driveway meets up with the logging road that we start to follow. Again, my mileage is going to be exact here anyway with all the bushwhacking we did. Really nice green grassy area though. Nice quiet spot too. Yeah, you got a real nice quiet spot back in here. So we're 5 1/2 miles in now, and we're at the end of that cabin's driveway at this here gate. And so now we'll follow this logging road for the next foreseeable future. I believe for a mile, I'm not sure. But this will go up a bit of a hill here. And it is nice and quiet out here. So here we are about 5.7 miles, and there's another logging road goes off to the right, and we're going to stay straight on this main logging road. So I'm not sure whose distances are off, because the trail book said the cabin was at 5.55, follow the driveway for 1/4 mile, and then at 6.1 was that branch off. I didn't get quite those distances. But at any rate, just so you know what direction to go. And then this is the logging road that will loop back around to the start of the trail. And you see we're coming up on that deer enclosure now. So just in case you don't know, when they try to regrow the forest with certain species, they'll put up these enclosure fences to keep the deer and things out. Not that they couldn't hop right up over it, really. But that's to prevent them from eating the saplings of whatever tree they're trying to get to grow in that area. And so you have these yellow pedestrian gates, and you're allowed to go through there and in there and that. They're not locked. Like I said, it's more to keep animals out. Six miles in here, still following this logging road. We got the deer enclosures on either side of us. Great view. Nice and quiet. It's always good when you're the loudest thing around. So here we are, 6.5 miles, right where we hit the intersection that we came up when we started. So overall, about a half mile less on my GPS than what the map stated. But again, I think we trimmed off some distance when we did some cross-country bushwhacking up over that hill. As far as distances in between landmarks, I did not come up with the same figures the book came up with. And I know my watch has been accurate to hundredths when measured against other devices. So I'm going to stand by my comments in the video of one point to another point. But so here we are at 6.53 miles. So now I'm going to give you some final notes. So overall opinion of the trail, overall it wasn't bad. There were definitely some frustrating parts. 1.25 miles in, when you come to that first cabin, there's supposed to be a Y in the trail, and you're supposed to go to the left. We didn't see a Y in the trail. We followed the blue blazes, which led us out to the road, and then it ended. We kind of bushwhacked up behind that cabin, and I think if you'd have stayed more closely behind that cabin, it would have kept you on the trail. And then for like the next 1.5 miles, it was a muddy mess. A lot of wet areas back in there, so that was a bit frustrating, heavily overgrown. And then when we hit once we got behind the Latonia CCC and we were following that railroad grade, about 2.9 mile in, we came up on that next cabin where we were talking to the owners, and the railroad grade led right to their front porch. And he directed us out around, but again, I didn't want to be directing people right through his front yard, so we went up. If you look in the woods there, you'll see a couple different flat spots up other roads. We went 3 roads up and then followed the contour out around the hillside. I think if we'd have stayed directly behind those cabins, that would have kept you in line with the railroad grade. So we did some bushwhacking there and kind of went up over the hillside, and I think that's where we trimmed off some distance. But overall, it's definitely a trail that has been long forgotten, and there are definitely some frustrating parts. But overall, not bad. The accurate description was mild hills. I didn't think there were any major hills, except for the ones we created for ourselves. But yeah, hey. No such thing as a bad day in the woods, so we did have a good time, despite whining about the mud and the bugs. Final note, I think it's great that a lot more people got the opportunity to get out in the outdoors this year, everybody being off of work and different things like that. But remember, carry it in, carry it out. Unfortunately, I've been seeing a lot of trash in the woods. I know people on the Potter County Facebook page were also commenting about it. Snowmobiling was extra good this year. Not throwing snowmobilers out there, I'm just saying in general there were a lot more people out in the woods this year, and we're seeing a lot more trash. So remember, pick up after yourself, pick up after others. I think that's bug number 6. But yeah, let's keep the place looking good, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.